I just love talking about myself. I want to just make sure the most of this is just about me.
Oh, it will be. Believe me. I'm not an interviewer, so I'm going to be terrible at this. I don't know, but I'll just ask you what I think is kind of like I was a massive Ali G show fan. Like I watched, and the Borat character in particular, like way back, you know, and loved the movie. And I've always like there's something kind of exquisite and excruciating. Like the best Borat stuff is when you're suffering watching it because you're so uncomfortable with what's happening. And so I guess my first question is just like, how many of these like setups and real people do you have to go through before you get somebody who will behave in this like unself-conscious way and will do these like incredibly and will like or endure these like, you know, incredible things that the character says without reacting?
I mean, for this one, our hit rate was really high, actually. We were I'd say probably 75, 80% of people that we shot with ended up in the movie. Yeah, it's kind of amazing.
And a dress with real sexy peels.
This is a bag that just goes over the dress.
They're nice.
I really like this.
The amazing thing about those movies, your Borat, from the first time I saw it to this movie, is that it's such an interesting acting lesson because if you look at what happens in those scenes and the things you say and how provocative it is and how shocking it often is, the degree to which people don't react is really surprising, to which people are like willing to either, I mean, what do you ascribe it to? Like a sort of compulsive politeness or wanting to please, or like that they'll just allow this outrageous stuff to pass?
Sometimes they react exactly how you think they would react. And not only that, they often perform in the way that you'd assume. It's an interesting acting lesson because you see how somebody reacts in a real life situation where you'd probably think if a performer did that, an actor did that, you go, oh, that's complete overacting. Where people go, you know, people put their hands over their mouths and shake their head. And, you know, so in the real world.
Like at the debut ball with the dance, and the reactions were very like
people
classic, Home Alone.
People behave like, people in the real world often behave like over the top actors. And even when they're suspicious, because I see it a lot of what you're doing is you're trying to convince them that you're real while delivering like big gags that you hope are going to make the audience really laugh. I don't know. I mean, I
like underselling the degree to which sometimes you'll say like incredibly shocking things and people just totally impassive.
You know, that's interesting because it's people they're not actually anti-Semitic. They're not actually racist. They just are indifferent to it. You know, like, it's the concept of being a bystander while terrible stuff is going on.
And everyone else is perfectly willing to let you like sell off your daughter, and have had incest with your daughter, be anti-Semitic, be racist, and there's like people. I mean, it's interesting that you say like, well, they're not really anti-Semitic, but they're just sort of like, I guess, apathetic, or just
it's apathetic. We're going to support Donald Trump. Or there's these, he's supporting white supremacists, and, I'm not a white supremacist, but that's not actually going to stop me voting for Donald Trump, which is, I remember when I was a history student and we were learning about Nazism, not comparing Trumpism with Nazism, but I had this brilliant tutor called Niall Ferguson who ended up sort of going into sort of economic history. But his thing was like, the success of Nazism was not, it didn't reveal that Germans hated Jews. They were just like, oh yeah, this policy is happening. And if this policy happens and the Jewish neighbor gets taken away, I can actually move into his house. You know, so there's actually just a lot of self-interest of stuff.
That's what's kind of staggering about it, is because, like, for example, if you were like developing a screenplay and you tried to write those scenes, the first reaction people would say, like, nobody would stand by for that, or they have to say something. And the amount of people who are just kind of like willing to like, it's just all too much trouble and will sort of let anything go. I feel like it sort of explains a lot.
I have a baby inside me.
Can you take it out?
No, we cannot. That's not what we do here.
I feel bad because I was the one who put the baby in her. Did you ever put one in your daughter?
No, I did not.
Obviously, you've written a story, an outline of some kind, but like, I'm really curious how much you kind of like improvise when you get there, and how much is like, I have these 4 lines that I know I want to hit and that I have to kind of get to, or is it just the setup and you riff? Like, to what extent is it written?
This time, we wrote a screenplay, and then we decided, we never did this with Borat or Bruno. We were like, let's do a table read. And then the night beforehand, we realized, oh, we've got Borat's lines, but we don't have the real people's lines. So we quickly wrote in the real people's lines, what we hoped they would say. I can go into a scene with like 100 lines. Just going, could go this way or that way.
It's really fascinating, because it's like people would think, well, this is a completely different exercise from acting. But it actually seems to me very much the same thing. You have a character, you're behaving realistically in these circumstances, and it's kind of like the ultimate acting test and exercise. Can you stay in character and keep the scene going, whether it goes this way or that way? And you're also sort of directing and writing as you go, because you must be thinking in the back of your head, like, well, I want to steer the scene towards this end, right? I mean, is that sort of the experience?
I remember early on, one of my agents going, I can't remember, I think I did a straight movie, I think it was Sweeney Todd or something like that. He goes, oh, it's good to see you can play a real person. And I remember being really insulted. I never brought it up with my agent, but I felt, what do you mean a real person? What do you think I'm doing when I go out there? These people believe that Borat or Ali G or Bruno or not the dictator, they believe they're in the presence of a real person.
Where is everybody?
They're wanting everybody to quarantine so they don't spread this virus.
Could I stay in your home?
When we decided to do, Borat stuck in a lockdown house, I realized it was a 5-day scene, and I realized I'm going to have to stay in character, convince them these guys are really suspicious, plus I have to get these story beats. I have to get the jokes in, but I have to get the story beats in as well. I got freaked out, and I arrived in the house that night, went to sleep in character, and I'm wearing the moustache and all that, and then woke up in the morning, and I think I had a panic attack, because I thought, I've got 5 days ahead of me. There's no way I'm going to be able to handle this. Like, these guys are going to see through it. I'm going to slip up. I'm going to say something wrong. I'm not going to get the lines out. There was no one from the crew around, because this was like 5 in the morning. And it was just me and these 2 guys in the house.
It really is like the ultimate acting test exercise. Can you take your character and go live with people for 5 days and stay in character and be realistic enough? Because not only do you have to convince the audience, but you're constantly under the scrutiny of the people you're doing the scenes with. At least when you're acting, everybody affords you the courtesy of not stopping and being like, you don't seem like who you say you are, no matter how bad it is. But like, if you're being exposed constantly to a suspicious person who's looking to unmask you, that's a much more pressure than even like being on stage for 2 hours, or certainly than being in a movie, in terms of like maintaining the integrity of your performance. Did anybody do anything when you went through
was
it CPAC with the Klan outfit, or no? Was it somewhere else when you were in the Klan robes? That elicited no real reaction?
That was the interesting thing. That's the kind of indifference. No, none of the security were concerned. They actually sent a legal letter later on just going, this completely misrepresents us. And then we got all the facts, and actually, we went in a couple of times. The security both times didn't do anything. Nobody was really offended by seeing a KKK member at CPAC. Yeah, that.
How did you get in there and do that and pull that off.
So with CPAC, the vice president was speaking. So, that's the same level of Secret Service as the president. That day I had to get in the makeup chair at 1 a.m. in a motel nearby CPAC. They put, I have a prosthetics team that we've flown over from England to transform me into Donald Trump, which is a 6-hour process. Then you're wearing a massive fat suit. Then I have to go through different layers of security, get fake ID, go through, then the TSA wand me down. So there's all this kind of stuff. By the way, the TSA, when they wanted me down, and I'm wearing a fat suit, which is like a 56-inch fat suit, which is what we felt that Donald Trump be most realistic as Donald Trump. The wand goes over me from the TSA guy, and then basically goes over my stomach, and it goes beep. It goes over my chest. It goes beep. And the guy says, "What is that?" And I go, "It's my pacemaker." And he goes, "Oh, okay." And then he carries on wanding me, and then it goes down to my belly, and it beeps again. And he goes, "What's that? Why is it beeping?" And I'm really tense, and I've got like the field producer next to me who's like completely crapping himself. We're going to be busted. We're not going to be able to get into CPAC. They caught me. The TSA have caught me. They know the moment they touch my belly, they're going to know that I'm wearing a fat suit. And I'd thought about this situation. I was like, we cannot wear anything metal, so the TSA can't find me. And then it's going beep over here. And he goes, "What is that?" And I didn't know what to say. I was completely stumped. And he said, he looks at me and goes, "Oh, that's the wire leading to the pacemaker, right?" I was like, "Yeah, obviously." He goes, "All right, come through." But you go through there, and then I'm hiding in the toilets at CPAC for another 5 hours, just hiding in a cubicle. I was left with like a can of Coke, and I sort of drew lines on it because I knew I was going to be in there for 5 hours. So I knew I could have a fifth of a can every hour. And then you get into CPAC, you do the scene, you try, then I get escorted out by, there's a bunch of Secret Service, about 11 guys. And then my main aim was not to give over my ID, because I felt like the moment they knew it was me, Sacha, that it would become a big news story, and that would destroy the rest of the movie.
How did you manage to not have to do that?
They asked for my ID, and I said, bear in mind, I'm surrounded by, like 8 Secret Service, 5 local cops. Then there is hotel security and event security. So you got about 15 people around. And so, one of the cops goes, "Give me your ID." And I go, and so I knew I had to delay. I knew if I delayed long enough, maybe they'd forget to get my ID. So I just said, "No, I'm not giving my ID until you show proof that you are a law enforcement officer." And the guy was wearing like a massive badge here. He goes, "What about this?" And I go, "Well, how do I know that's real?" Another couple goes, "Give me your ID." So somebody from the Secret Service said, "Give me your ID." Okay, listen, I'd like to, but my ID is in my shoe. Do you want me to take off my shoe? And the guy goes, no, forget it. And then later on, his supervisor comes over and goes, "What's his ID? What's his name?" And he goes, "Oh, I haven't seen the ID." And the supervisor goes, "Well, why not?" He goes, "Well, it's in his shoe." And the supervisor goes, "So what if it's in his shoe? Get me the ID." And by that point, they'd led me into a different room, and I don't know, it never got out. So we had a fake head on, and I had a doctor's note because I was scared they were going to rip the mask off. And if they ripped the mask off, they were going to rip my skin off. And I'd stop, I'd be quite bad. So I had a doctor's note going, if you rip his mask off, there is a makeup artist, this is the number, it's going to take 1 hour. The next day, because they said, if you come back on, we will arrest you. We sent a guy in the same prosthetic in just to pick up one shot running through. And he was surrounded by Secret Service again, all the police, and they were like, "We are arresting you." you came in here yesterday, da, da. And after an hour, they call the makeup person, they take his face off, and it's somebody different.
I was so shocked by the Giuliani interview and the subsequent sort of bedroom weirdness that happened. And I really wonder whether like you came running in because you thought like, like if I let this go any longer, something really horrible is going to happen? Or did you what did you think was about to happen there?
So in that scene, we built a secret compartment inside a wardrobe for me to stand in. And it was about this wide and about 6'6". So I'm standing in complete darkness in this wardrobe. And in that wardrobe, I'm going to have to change into, 2 outfits. I have to change into the guy who comes on with the mic. And then I'm going to have to change into this kind of erotic outfit to seduce Giuliani with. And so everything was worked out, like we built this thing. And the idea was that I would communicate with a mobile phone, which was in there. The reason we built it is because Giuliani was coming with his own security, who's this quite senior ex-cop, and we were told he was going to sweep the room. And sure enough, I managed to get in there. I got taken to the wrong room actually, and I was like, "Where the hell are we? Where? Like, oh, Giuliani's going to go in that." I'm running down, get into a room, get into the wardrobe, close the thing, and suddenly his security guy comes in, literally as I'm closing the door of this hideaway, and start sweeping the room to check there's no one in the room. Yeah. Wow. So I'm in there, and then his security guard sits outside the door to make sure no one comes in or out. And then in there, the idea is I'm going to communicate with a mobile phone, with a cell phone. I switch on the cell phone, I'm in pitch black, and it's got 4%. And I know that's an hour and a half scene. And then also there was like some really quite comical, like bad Clouseau moments where, where I'm changing, I'm changing in the room and I'm going into the, laundry, something drops on the floor and you're just, you're waiting to see whether the security guard comes in or Giuliani comes in. I never thought that he was actually going to go into the room with her.
You had no idea they would end up in the bedroom, right?
I was hoping, I was hoping for the movie they would, but also, this as a producer and a director, I have a actress there who, I need to look after and protect as well, because we're putting her in a situation with a powerful man who may or may not have been in this situation beforehand. I couldn't communicate in the next room, we'd hired a hotel room, and the director there and my co-writer, Ant Hines, had the monitor, and they're like, they were meant to be liaising with me, but I didn't have the bloody battery power. So I was switching it on and off. And then finally, and I could hear Rudy and them going in. And I wasn't even sure that they were going in. And then eventually I just got the thing of just go, now. And then basically ran in. But I had no idea, I got the instruction to run in there. I didn't know that he was on the bed, so.
It was shocking. And it appeared as if almost we better go in now before this turns into something that is so horrible that we can never can't even put in the movie and becomes evidence in a court case or something,
Yeah, well, that's right. We were scared that it would veer into an even more ugly situation. He then, obviously, he has this policeman, ex-cop outside. The ex-cop then pushes me and Maria, once, Rudy asked for help, pushes us into the room and goes, "You're staying here," because he knew he was going to call the cops. And then so I said to this Rudy's security, firstly, don't touch me. And secondly, I'm still in character. I was like, get out of the room right now. He goes, "No, you don't tell me to get out of the room." I go, "Get out of the room. This is my room." And he goes, "You're staying right here. Don't you tell me to go," I'm police. Da, da, da. I said, get out of my room. This is my property. I've paid for this. You get out of the room. And I held my ground with him. And obviously, what he's doing was illegal. You're not allowed to stay in someone's hotel room when they. Right. I go, I have paid for this. You leave the room right now. And so we had like an escape route. But Rudy called the cops. He was aware it was not going to look good.
That was very bold. You have this extraordinary capacity to get these powerful people to expose themselves, and then to also maintain, in the moment of climax when you have the big fish and he's right there. If you don't say take my back vagine or take my anus, right? It's not in the movie. So remembering the dialogue and nailing the points at that has to be require incredible discipline, because I would think the tendency would be to just kind of either freeze up or panic or forget, lose the train of thought that we're making a movie. It's a narrative because it's such a elevated situation.
Is that my muscle?
You must be sued relentlessly and constantly. I mean, I get sued.
Oh, yeah.
So you must get sued daily.
Yeah, all the time.
You go from sort of controlling, be part of the writing process, having the ability to completely improvise fluidly, to working with Aaron Sorkin, who I've never worked with, but who has a reputation for wanting the script's integrity to be, delivered as written. Even I feel a little bit sometimes chafe at kind of writer-directors who are really rigid about sometimes even down to the intonation and pronunciation stuff. Is it difficult for you, or do you find to have to then go work with a guy like Sorkin, or do you find it kind of liberating because you don't have to think of anything except exactly what the lines are?
I'd be lying if I wouldn't say I was nervous to work with Aaron, because he's the greatest living screenwriter. He's brilliant. He's an incredible wordsmith. He's the Shakespeare of our time. And although you have won an Academy Award for writing.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. You got that. But so, and I'd heard his reputation, and for me, I did wonder. I was like, why are you casting me, a well-known improviser, to deliver specific lines? And I spent probably about 2 months pitching him alternative lines. Aaron was very nice enough to humor me and let me pitch certain lines. And each time he'd say, thank you, but no. But he never said, stop it.
Anything in the movie at all? Nothing? Zero?
Once I realized he wasn't going to change anything, then, and also I'd said to him, I go, listen, I'm going to pitch a bunch of stuff. I don't care if you take anything or nothing, whatever it is, but I'm going to pitch you stuff. And then eventually when I realized he was actually going to take nothing, it was actually quite liberating, because I thought, okay, I'm just going to concentrate on different variations of that particular line.
And yet there was in your performance a sort of hint of a kind of, I don't know what, melancholy or sort of cynicism or something. Did you consciously imbue him with that because you thought, well, this guy's maybe a depressed guy also, or is also struggling with this stuff? Or did I just make that up once I saw that he killed himself and project that onto the performance?
Well, when I was doing the research for it, there's that scene where, that press conference where they go, what would you give? How much would it cost or something like that? And he goes, my life.
Right.
How much is it worth to you? What's your price? To call off the revolution? My life.
That was the moment that really struck me. You go, this clown with crazy hair, and he's fun, and he's fun to be around, but oh my God, he's ready to die. I suppose, like you, because we come from writing, my way into the character is really reading what they've written, and then just listening to his work, and just watching and listening to as much as I could get my hands on.
I've kind of changed as an actor, my approach, particularly from before and after I started directing, because it was really instructive. I learned more about acting from directing than I did from acting classes and being an actor, because there's something really valuable about being on the other side and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't and seeing what you can do editorially, and also just getting used to the sound of your own fucking stupid voice. I have to try to generate, real emotions to feel that way. And I found that really the only way I've been able to do that, I feel like my own acting, at least by my own standards, has gotten better the more as I've got older and had more life experiences and gone through more things and just had more stuff to sort of access. And with a role like that, I mean, I am an alcoholic, so I understood to a certain extent, the alcoholism, but I didn't, I haven't lost a child. there are a lot of, these guys have a very different life from mine. And, but what was interesting about the story was I hope that people would empathize with this person and find some catharsis in watching them go through something very difficult and find some measure of, pulling themselves out of a dark, deep hole. And so I was very concerned that I have to find ways to really make this as realistic as possible and trust that if I feel the way the character's feeling, that it's good. I find with roles, I find this even as a director, I don't know what the experience is like for you, but something either sort of clicks in, you identify with it, you kind of inherently understand the character, and that when it's at its best, it's easy. I once read an acting book when I was really, nerdily into acting and reading every book I could find that talked about how, don't think of a real event in your own life that was painful or ecstatic or whatever it is, the way the scene is, but that the mind stores emotional memories differently. So find the memory of something that you saw or that's sort of associated with that, but not directly associated with that. And that will allow the feeling to sort of come in the back door of the brain somehow. And I definitely found that to be true in this case. It really comes down to kind of just being willing to not push, to not force it, to be willing to be bad or flat or empty, and just I'm not going to create anything. If nothing happens, nothing happens, and it does, and it's flat. And for me in this movie, because the script was so well written and the other actors were so good and the whole thing felt so real and authentic to me, that it was really wonderful. It's a really depressing story about this guy who was his kid, he's divorced, he's an alcoholic, and yet every day I came home so happy.
It's uplifting as well. Yeah.
It really just reconnected me with what I was really interested about acting kind of in the first place, before you have thought about what your career or what people are going to say or what the internet had, all the other stuff.
Yeah.
There were these young guys who played the basketball players in the movie, and they were incredible. And they were all, there's 12 of them, and they were all spent all their time talking about this audition they went to and that casting director and this agent. And being around that just reminded me of that point in life when all you want to do was just get a part and get a line and do this thing for its own sake, and it was really wonderful in that way. It was very you know what, I want to do this. This is the thing I want to do. Yeah,
it's a really fine line, because we know he's going to get back in and coach the basketball team. It's going to go great, but to me, it's your brilliant performance and the subtle and the realism of it. It's actually hard even looking at you now, connecting you with, the man in the film. I see you as two very, it's just a complete character you've created. But I just want to talk about that scene where you're getting through the fridge, getting through the beers in the fridge. Because obviously it feels like on the page, that's like a little montage of him drinking the thing. But yeah, it's really captivating. You're getting through, you're saying basically the same lines. It's just an incredibly challenging thing to make entertaining, where you have 9 words, whatever, you're repeating again and again in slightly different variations while getting drunk. Was that, did you drink in that scene? Can I ask? Or how did you?
So you got, no, I was sober.
But that's amazing. I was looking at that and I was like, okay, he's got to have. Well, that's incredibly impressive then, because it looks like it's completely believable as somebody slowly getting
the value of research. The researcher role. That is a case where it would have been a more difficult thing, and probably an actor who wasn't an alcoholic or an addict or whatever would want to sort of like illustrate it, show it, demonstrate it. And that, like, my experience, especially towards the end of the period of time in my life when I was drinking, was that it was not a more and more drawn in, withdrawn, separate, isolating kind of experience, and ritualistic and self-soothing. And, rather than what you think of as kind of like drunkenness that you often see, which is like, crazy and out of control, or riot, the guy in his house sort of withdrawing into himself.
See, I love the performance. It was completely believable.
And what I thought was really interesting when we screened the movie for the first time was that, like, the first few, the audience was laughing.
In that scene?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it gets dark.
And then you just think like, oh, wait a minute, you should probably stop now, and we're not having fun. And you could feel the sort of palpable discomfort of going from, it's a fun time, to like, this is a problem. And it's hard for people to watch.
I thought there was a real masterful, variety of tones. Like, that's why I was talking about the drinking scene that you were talking about. I mean, you've got the research, your own personal research. But to me, the interesting thing, the technical stuff that's so impressive is how you convey the gradual, incremental, increasing drunkenness and pathetic nature of this character. So it's only so much, it's not like when you were drinking that you were aware, you weren't seeing yourself in the third person going, okay, this is stage 7.
I was able to just go like, okay, like sort of tell my mind, like I sort of felt drunk. I was sober, but like you kind of go like, I remember that feeling. I know what this feels like. It's this point. And then, you just sort of letting it go.
I spent a lot of time hurting myself. I made a lot of bad decisions. I had a lot of regrets.
And one of the really interesting things about seeing the movie with the audience, which was that we ended up doing a reshoot on the movie. So we went back and shot a scene where he gets fired. Just the simple sort of sad humiliation of them coming in and going, we're going to let you go, was so much more visceral. Yeah. Then, and it's not violent. He doesn't go to jail. He doesn't endanger anyone's life. And yet it's much more moving, So it's a really good lesson, both in acting and writing and directing.
You're an incredible director. How do you cope with acting in a scene and you're not in control anymore?
I learned to direct. I learned to write. I learned to act, all this stuff just by watching people better than me and by having no ego about it. It doesn't say directed by Ben Affleck and the 3 best ideas came from the props guy. You know what I mean? I'm always just very open to, sort of who has the best idea. I have no ego about it because I assume there's probably a better idea than mine. And I hope people speak up, and you have this window. And mostly I find you get really, really good stuff.
But how do you decide what to do? Because you're slightly cursed in that you're a brilliant Academy Award-winning writer, Academy Award-winning director, and wait a minute, you haven't won an Academy Award for acting, but you might do now, hopefully. But how do you decide what to do next? Because you're slightly cursed by being a little too talented.
You're only as good as your last job. The phone stops ringing for everybody. I mean, that kind of nervousness, that anxiety is sort of always with you. Like, one of the biggest surprises I had when I had the chance to meet some people who are my heroes, some legends, some, amazing, people I'd looked up to my whole life who had towering careers of achievement, was that they were still insecure and prone to doubt and worrying about how their movie was going to do. And I was like, what are you worried about? Like, you're already in the dictionary under, like, brilliant artist. It's over. You did it. You can do whatever you want. And there is some of that never leaves you, that insecurity. And if you do get complacent, you probably get less interesting and less good. Like, at this point in my career, honestly, I really just, I'm a little old for, like, I'm 48, so I don't know how much longer I'm going to be, I'm not the 25-year-old guy. And I think there are interesting more interesting roles for people who have like had more life experience, and that those kinds of dramas about sort of people that with whom you can kind of identify are just more interesting to me, because I no longer have the ability to do something when I'm bored halfway through it and hate it. Like, I just can't do it. It's not worth it to be away from my kids. Like, if I'm going to be away from my children, if I'm going to travel, something like, there had better be something really satisfying and something that I think they'll see at some point. Hopefully, I'm just like looking to do stuff that is personally interesting and rewarding to me, that I enjoy doing during the day, and to work with people that I like. I think my Armageddon days are behind me.
That's a shame.
I'll never do that again.
Let me ask you this one thing, because after Argo, Iran issued some edict, or the mullahs did, or like that I was a war criminal, and like that I had
I heard about
committed a propaganda crime of some kind. So they thought like, well, you should go to Iran because you may be arrested. Like, what is your status in Kazakhstan?
Well, the government now actually have embraced the movie. So they have a tourist campaign that says Kazakhstan is nice.
It's nice.
So obviously, you're a 2-time Academy Award winner, multiple Golden Globe winner. You were nominated for Best Depiction of Nudity, Sexuality, and Seduction by the Alliance of Women Film Journalists in Gone Girl. What did that mean to you, getting that nomination?
I mean, well, everyone dreams of that. That's what you get in it for.
Yeah.
That's what you get it for, is,
Were you furious that you didn't win? That you just wasn't honestly nominated?
You've done so much frontal. You've been so naked, and yet you were overlooked. And I thought, like, Sacha might be hurting. Is he?
Yeah, the Alliance of Women Film Journalists never saw, they never, saw what I saw in the mirror.
Goodbye, my friend. Let's not let another 7 years pass before we speak.
Yes, don't be a stranger. Don't be a stranger. Zoom me tomorrow, okay?
All right, I will. I love you.
We're going to do this every day, yeah?
Yes, we just talk about ourselves.
Yeah, let's talk about craft every day. Okay, I'm going to write some more questions. All right, lots of love, matey.